Ever get that feeling, like you're the one holding yourself back as a leader? Well, get ready to look in the mirror because today's deep dive is all about uncovering those uncomfortable truths, the ones that might actually be the key to unlocking your leadership potential.
And we're diving deep into The Motive by Patrick Lencioni for this one.
This book is seriously thought-provoking. It's about the hidden reasons so many leaders fall short. And spoiler alert, it's probably not what you think.
What I love about Lencioni's approach is how he uses storytelling to really bring these concepts to life. He introduces us to this CEO named Shay, who's basically getting his butt kicked by a competitor.
Okay, but relatable though, right?
Mhm.
We've all been there struggling to figure out why things aren't working, even when we're putting in the effort. So what's Shay's deal? Bad product, bad market, just plain bad luck.
He wishes it were that simple. No, Shay's smart-driven, but he's missing something fundamental and he knows it, which is why he ends up reaching out to this other CEO, Liam, for advice.
Okay, so who's Liam, the guy with all the answers?
Liam is like the last person you'd expect Shay to listen to, think Silicon Valley hotshot, who made it big by disrupting the industry. But here's where it gets interesting. Liam actually used to run a company just like Shay's, super tech-focused, and it crashed and burned.
Oof, talk about a humbling experience.
Right, so he's been there, done that, got the scars to prove it. Which is why when Liam finally agrees to meet with Shay and offer some advice, it's like a punch to the gut.
Okay, lay it on me. What's Liam's big secret?
He learned to love the parts of being CEO that most people hate. The people stuff, the emotional labor, all the things you can't just code your way out of.
Wait, you're telling me this tech genius CEO found success by leaning into feelings and relationships?
Yeah.
That's not exactly in the typical startup playbook. So how does he convince Shay this isn't total BS?
Well, at first, Shay doesn't believe it. He thinks Liam's lost it. But Liam breaks it down for him, explaining how he himself had to go through a massive shift in his whole approach to leading.
I bet this is where Lencioni brings in the whole reward-centered versus responsibility-centered leadership thing.
And it's such a game changer because it cuts right to the heart of what truly motivates us as leaders.
Okay, so we've got these two leadership styles going head-to-head. Reward-centered versus responsibility-centered. Where does Shay's whole, I just want to build cool tech attitude fit into all of this?
That's classic reward-centered leadership. You're driven by the perks, the status, even just the ego boost of being the one in charge.
It's like, I climbed the ladder now, where's my trophy?
Exactly. But here's the thing, it's not sustainable. It's a recipe for mediocrity at best and disaster at worst.
Because you're so focused on the reward, you forget about the actual work. The tough decisions, the messy human stuff. And let's be real, that's what leadership is really about, right?
100%. And that's where Lencioni's 5 omissions of reward-centered leaders comes in.
Ooh, tell me more.
It's like a giant flashing warning sign highlighting all the ways these leaders tend to drop the ball. And you know what's scary?
What?
How relatable these omissions are, even if we don't see ourselves as the CEO type.
Okay, I'm ready to feel personally attacked. Get me with omission number 1.
Developing the leadership team. And I'm not talking about those cheesy trust fall retreats.
Thank good.
Lencioni's talking about the real deal, fostering genuine communication, addressing conflict head-on. It's about creating a team that can actually function, not just a bunch of individuals competing for attention.
Right. So you need that foundation of trust and communication for a team to actually thrive.
Exactly. And without it, you get those team meetings where everyone's tiptoeing around the elephant in the room, or that star performer who throws everyone else under the bus.
This is the worst.
And a responsibility-centered leader lines into those uncomfortable situations. They mediate conflict, they coach their team through it. A reward-centered leader avoids it like the plague.
Because it's messy and uncomfortable.
Exactly. They think, if I ignore it, maybe it'll just go away, but we all know that's not how it works.
Never does. Which brings us to omission number 2, managing subordinates.
Oh, this is a big one.
This doesn't mean micromanaging every little detail.
No. It's about being present, understanding what your team is doing, offering support, addressing issues before they become major fires to put out.
So basically the opposite of Shay's hands-off approach.
100%. He's all, as long as the tech gets built, I don't care how you do it. But that's a recipe for disaster.
Because you lose sight of the human element, the fact that you're working with people, not just cogs in a machine.
And that those people need guidance and support, and sometimes a little tough love to perform at their best.
Which brings us to omission number 3, the dreaded difficult conversations.
Dun, dun, dun.
Why are these so terrifying for reward-centered leaders?
Because they require vulnerability, empathy, a willingness to maybe ruffle some feathers. And let's be honest, sometimes it's easier to just avoid the issue altogether, even if it explodes later.
Ugh, tell me about it. We've all been there. putting off that awkward conversation, even though we know it needs to happen.
But here's the thing, those conversations are often way less scary than we make them out to be in our heads.
It's the anticipation that gets it.
Exactly. And a responsibility-centered leader understands that those difficult conversations are crucial for growth, accountability, and a healthy team dynamic.
Okay, so we've covered team development, managing subordinates, difficult conversations. What's next on the list?
The bane of many a workplace existence.
Don't tell me.
The dreaded meetings,
Oh, no.
specifically those leadership team meetings that should be setting the strategic direction, fostering alignment, but often just become unproductive time sucks.
Ugh. You know those meetings where you're checking your watch every 5 minutes?
And it's a direct reflection of the leader's lack of investment. A responsibility-centered leader sees meetings as a chance to connect, to align, to make sure everyone's on the same page.
So it's not about the meeting itself. It's about the intention and the energy you bring to it.
Exactly. And that brings us to our final omission: communication. And I'm not just talking about sending company-wide emails or quarterly reports.
It's deeper than that, isn't it?
It's about being that consistent voice, reinforcing the organization's purpose, its values, its vision. You need to constantly remind your team why they're doing what they're doing, how it all ties back to the bigger picture.
It's like being a chief reminding officer.
Love that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. It's about being present, engaged, making sure everyone understands not just the what, but the why.
Okay, so we've unpacked these 5 omissions, but does this really apply if I'm not a CEO? I mean, these seem like pretty high-level issues.
That's the thing about these omissions. They're not limited to the C-suite. They show up in every level of leadership, whether you're managing 2 people or 200.
So it's about the mindset, not just the title.
Exactly. Lencioni talks about a CIO who got completely blindsided by a company restructuring because he was so focused on the technical side, he forgot to build relationships and understand the bigger picture.
Ouch. So even if you're killing it in your own lane, if you're not paying attention to the bigger picture and building relationships, you're setting yourself up for a rude awakening.
And then you have the checked-out CEO who's technically doing all the right things, but their heart's not in it. They're just going through the motions, chasing the next shiny object.
And their team can sense that lack of genuine engagement, right?
Absolutely. So even if you're achieving some external success, if your internal motivation's messed up, it's going to catch up with you eventually.
So how do we fix it? How do we shift from that reward-centered mindset to a more responsibility-centered approach?
Well, for me, this idea of servant leadership is huge. And Lencioni kind of flips it on its head. He's saying it's not about being a pushover. It's about whose needs are being met by your actions as a leader.
Whose needs are you serving? That's a great question.
Are you serving your ego, your desire for comfort and recognition, or are you truly serving the needs of your team, your organization, something bigger than yourself?
That is such a powerful reframing. It makes you think about those times when you're feeling burnt out or frustrated as a leader. Maybe it's not the work itself, but the why behind it that needs adjusting.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting about all of this is that Lencioni doesn't just stop at the individual level. He argues that tolerating bad leadership has consequences for society as a whole.
Whoa, okay. Unpack that for me.
Think about it. If we accept that leaders are supposed to be selfish, reward-driven, then what message does that send to everyone else?
It raised this culture where everyone's just looking out for themselves instead of working towards a common good.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that impacts everything from how businesses operate to how we treat each other in our daily lives. It's a slippery slope.
So this isn't just about being a better boss or climbing the corporate ladder. It's about raising the bar for what we expect from our leaders and holding them accountable.
And ultimately, it's about recognizing that true leadership isn't about personal gain. It's about service. It's about making a positive impact on the world around us.
It's funny how we often think about leadership as this very external thing, titles, corner offices. But what Lencioni really drives home is that it starts from within, with our own motivations and our willingness to put the needs of others before our own.
100%. And that's where his call to action comes in. He challenges us to each identify at least one area from those 5 omissions where we might be falling short.
Yeah.
Maybe we're avoiding those difficult conversations or not fully investing in our team's development.
So it's not enough to just read the book and nod along. We have to be willing to do the work to actually change our behavior.
Exactly. Because real change requires action. It's about taking those insights and turning them into something tangible, something that makes a difference.
That's such a powerful message. It's not about chasing titles or external validation. It's about finding fulfillment in leading with integrity and purpose.
And that's something anyone can strive for, no matter where you are in your career or your life.
Well said. So as you go about your day, your work, your interactions, think about this. Are you leading from a place of reward or a place of responsibility? And what kind of impact do you want to have on the world around you?
Because at the end of the day, true leadership is about so much more than just ourselves. It's about leaving the world a little bit better than we found it.
That is such a great place to wrap up this deep dive into the motive.
Mm.
Big thanks to Expert's Name for breaking it all down for us.
Always a pleasure.
And to all of you listening, keep asking those tough questions. Keep challenging yourselves to be better leaders and keep striving to make a real difference in the world.
Mhm.
And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.